Welcome, folks. Today we're going to talk TBR and what is on my immediate horizon. Now, I've got 4 books that I'm reading right now, one of which is an audio book. That is The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie, the 3rd book and final book in the original First Law trilogy. I will move on to more Joe Abercrombie after I finish this. I have a bunch of other ones, but not immediately. The items on this TBR are going to take priority over that. I'm also reading the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and so at the top of the TBR are the 3 books that I have not gotten to yet. Those are Told the Hounds, Dust of Dreams, and the last book in the 10-book main Malazan series, The Crippled God. Now, one of my 4 reading slots is pretty much going to be occupied by a Malazan book until I am finished with that 10-book main series. The next slot that opens up, however, will be for The Sunlit Man by Brandon Sanderson. And this is kind of a priority because this has to get read before December 6th when the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive comes out, Wind and Truth. Sanderson himself recommends reading The Sunlit Man before Wind and Truth. Little bit of a spoiler, I suppose, for Rhythm of War here, but Rhythm of War, the 4th book in the Stormlight Archive, was the most Cosmere connected, at least that I noticed, of the Stormlight Archive books so far. And I think more or less immediately after finishing The Sunlit Man, it will be timed to move on to Wind and Truth on December 6th. There are 32 preview chapters of this book available at reactormag.com. I have read all of those. It's really good so far. This will finish the first 5-book arc of the Stormlight Archive, and I enjoyed the previous 4 books enormously. They were all 5-star books for me, so I can't wait for this. I haven't read that much Cosmere stuff so far, but more on that in a minute. A long time ago, something like 20 or 25 years ago, I started Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. This is his epic fantasy series that inspired George R.R. Martin to write A Song of Ice and Fire. The first book is The Dragonbone Chair, and back in the day, that was as far as I got. I have picked up an ebook of The Dragonbone Chair and will be rereading it to start the rest of the series. This is one of several big fantasy series from that general period. Wheel of Time is another one, but that's not actually on my TBR list. I will get to that eventually. These are series that I did not finish at the time and aim to finish now. The first of those was actually Malazan. Also on the near future TBR is A Game of Cages by Harry Connolly. This is the 2nd book in his Ray Lilly series. This is dark urban fantasy, and it might be my favorite urban fantasy series just based on the first book. I like this stuff better than the Harry Dresden stuff, which is also good. I just like Harry Connolly a little bit better. So I picked this up after a long wait and a lot of foot dragging. I can't wait to start reading this. Speaking of series I didn't finish, and Brandon Sanderson, I read the first 2 books in the Mistborn series something like 15 years ago. It is time to finally get to book 3, The Hero of Ages. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to reread the first 2 or just find a synopsis on the internet and read those instead, but I'm definitely going to get to The Hero of Ages because I really kind of want to read the Mistborn Era 2 books. They sound neat to me. It's also past time for me to get to some John Gwynne. Now, I have the entire Bloodsworn series that starts with The Shadow of the Gods in trade paperback, but I'm actually going to start with the ebook of Malice. This is the first book in the Faithful and the Fallen series, and this is his first published series. And some folks seem to think that it's a little bit weaker than his other 2 epic fantasy series, but this series sounds interesting to me, so this is where I'm going to start, and I will report back when I'm finished. Also on the TBR is Richard Swan's The Justice of Kings. This is the first book in the Empire of the Wolf series, and it sounds pretty interesting to me. It sounds like a sort of urban fantasy with a lot of political elements that has an investigative element to it. That sounds pretty cool. I've had this series highly recommended to me, and I think I'm going to like it based on what I know about it so far. Now, I think I will finish the Malazan Book of the Fallen sometime early in 2025, and that will leave me searching for another big, deep, rich fantasy series, a sort of heavy fantasy series. So there are 3 that I've set my eyes on and have obtained the first book for. The first of those is The Wars of Light and Shadow by Janny Wurts. This is a series I'd actually picked up the first book many, many years ago, but I'm hearing really good things about it now, and I think this might be the time when I can read these books and appreciate them. So this is on the TBR officially at this point. Another book that I picked up quite a while ago and just never got to, but which I hear tremendous things about its depth and richness and texture, is R. Scott Bakker's The Darkness That Comes Before. This is the first book in his Prince of Nothing series, which I think remains incomplete, but it's kind of made up of several sub-series, and this first series, at least, is complete. This series seems to have heavy religious aspects, which is another element or theme that I am intrigued by, so we will see. It's super heavy reading. I've actually read the first 15 or so pages of it. That was ages ago. This is another one where I feel like I am a little better, if that's the right word, reader today, and so I might appreciate it more now when I wasn't able to get into it when I first opened it up like 20 years ago. And of course, I really do need to get to the realm of the Elderlings. I have never read any Robin Hobb, so we will be starting at the very beginning with Assassin's Apprentice. This is the first book in the Farseer trilogy, and the whole realm of the Elderlings, which I think is like 16 or 17 books, is made up of these sequential series, most of which are trilogies. I think one or two of them are actually 4 books, however. Everybody says that Robin Hobb's character work is amazing. I do have a little bit of a concern about the world building, but I also suspect that once I'm able to get a quarter or so of the way into this book, that will cease to be a problem for me. So that's what's coming up. Stay tuned, and we will talk about all of these books in due time, but we're probably setting ourselves up for most of Q1 of 2025 here with this TBR.